Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Online Ed 2022. On behalf of Henry Stewart Events, I'd like to welcome you all today. I'm delighted to introduce our chair for the day, Stella Ekabusi. Thank you, Stella. Over to you.
Hi everyone. Just one second. Welcome to Online Ed. My name is Stella Ekabusi and I'm delighted to be chairing this conference today. I'm really excited to be hearing from a great lineup of excellent speakers from across the world and learning from all the conversations we're going to be having today. A tiny bit about me first off before we move on to the first session. My day job is as Head of Digital Education Futures at the London School of Economics here in the UK. And I'm also Deputy Director of the Eden Centre for Education Enhancement. So my role depends on making the best of digital to make the best of learning and teaching in higher education. And at the LSE at the moment, like so many organisations, we're embarking on a digital transformation. And there's some excellent practice both in online and in digital across my institution, but I'm looking for ways we can do more and build on exciting innovations from across the world. So I'm here today to learn, I'm here to engage in conversations, and I'm also your chair for today. So again, welcome to Online Ed. I want to thank you all for attending and for joining to review and discuss the newest developments and the latest thinking in delivering learning online. We also thank our sponsors for the event, and you can visit them throughout the conference via the exhibition tab to find out more. During the sessions, we encourage you to chat with fellow participants and of course make the most of our expert speaker lineup by submitting your questions using the Q&A panel on the right hand side. You can also use the chat tab to get the conversation going or navigate to the lounge tab where you can participate in real-time networking with industry peers. If at any point during the event you need to speak to Henry Stewart colleagues, please use the chat bot in the bottom right of the screen. Now on with the event. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Denisha Jairam-Owthar from Stellenbosch University, as she takes us through the exciting revolution in digital, enhancing agile and flexible learning strategies to take higher education to the next level and beyond. Off you go, Denisha.
Thank you so much, Stella. I'm really humbled to do this presentation for such an awesome event. You know, all over the world, I really look forward to hearing to the questions and the inputs and the comments and the feedback. I just want to start with the presentation. Let me just move. I hope everybody can see my screen. Right. So my topic is looking at the exciting revolution in digital, overall taking higher education to the next level and beyond. If you look at the education technology modernization stack, and I think this is a piece of research that has been done, where it's actually looking at your learning environments and your enterprise technologies. Your learning environments essentially look at your student information systems, your enterprise business capabilities, and recruiting, retaining, and advancing staff. So those are the elements of technology that focus specifically on the inside of the institution or the higher education institute. And if you look at the other side of the circle, we've got learning environments, which is learning management systems, data and analytics, and learning innovation. And I think if you put those two together, it looks holistically about how do you modernize the technology in a university. And because we are living in a post-COVID world, and particularly technology in universities have shown how they've actually come and brought the universities through this time where online learning and teaching and research continued. So the expectation now to the clients and the customers being essentially the students as your primary clients and customers, and then the staff, they have obviously accelerated. Their expectations of technology in the higher education institutes have accelerated. And because they have accelerated, it is now important to look at the different components on how would you modernize the technology. And some universities may be very different than others, where some would put more investment in resources into learning management systems and less into the enterprise business capabilities. So looking at a holistic modernization wheel, I think this gives a good picture in terms of which elements of technology and how we can actually modernize it. And looking at which are the priorities for the technology divisions and technology departments. If you look at the different dimensions of user experience, and you're looking at the customer experience, which is students, and they have different understandings. They're coming with different needs. They're coming with evolving needs. They are more digital and their needs are dynamic. And we need to, as technology divisions or departments, be able to keep up with that. And then we come to the employee experience, looking at increasing the faculty and staff satisfaction, retention and skills levels and productivity. So that looks at essentially how do we digitize, how do we automate, and looking at the efficiencies and economies of scale on how we do things inside the university from an employee staff perspective. Then we come to the user experience in terms of combined institution, mission, user needs, and design best practices. So looking at the user experience, then you're looking at the researchers as well, because they need to obviously research, they need to have a holistic view, they need to be able to store the data. There are different data requirements, there are different data laws in every country that exists. And those are changing all the time. So we need to be able to make sure, especially where the funding of the researchers are coming from, are we making sure that the data is properly stored? Is it secured? How often do we do cybersecurity checks on those areas where the data is stored? And then you look at the multi-experience, and that is your multiple touch points, essentially looking at the mobile apps, your web, and your virtual reality and wearables. So in some institutions, maybe mobility, like in mine, is a high priority. So we want to be able to connect anywhere, anytime, on any device. And that's essentially looking at the different platforms. Others where virtual reality and augmented reality could be a much more advanced stages. So it also depends on where is what is the maturity of your users? What is the maturity of your technology stack? What are the maturity of your staff that need to use these specific technologies that you may have? Then you look at the different dimensions. Again, here it goes in depth in terms of looking at the actual overall outputs of it, as well as the platforms in some cases. So the customer element, you want to show the in control. They are getting, for example, satisfaction. You're giving student analytics. What is their propensity to pass? What is their propensity to fail? If they have got marks or duly performed certificates that are at a certain percentage, how prepared are they for examinations? Also, what is the graduation rate? What is the graduation's time to employ? After they've actually, the graduates' time to employ, after they've actually completed their studies. What is the dropout rate and what is the incident rate? Empowerment, you're looking at the overall career opportunities, making sure that the staff is able to use technology to train, to learn, and reputation as well, provide surveys on their and universities like to do online surveys. So this is a very important part, I believe, for any tertiary institute. Then looking at the adoption percentage of online registrations, how was it year on year? Has it increased? Is it actually inclusive of a diverse group? Are students coming from a specific area only? Do you need to cast your net wider in different areas? So this becomes very useful as well. And then the enablement element is, looking at the process and the satisfaction and the data quality and the usability and the benefits end to end, looking at those processes as well. And I really want to focus on the evolving student. And I think the learning process now is no longer a one-dimensional process. From when I was in university to now, it has changed by leaps and bounds. Students really want to come into a lecture and be able to interact. And some of them, looking at some of the feedback that I've received, want to interact on a real-time basis. They want specific engagements with lecturers to say, I actually have a specific issue on this example. They don't want a one-dimensional learning experience. They want a 2 or a 3-dimensional learning experience where they can book time with the lecturer online in real time to sort out specifics, because all of the information about the lecture they have probably read already from different sources, applied their minds to examples, but we now need to give them engagement-specific elements. Students also, what I found, the predictive analytics elements on student outcomes. They really want to understand, what is their propensity, to, pass a course or fail a course, depending on what their test marks could be, depending on what the assignment marks are, depending on what, they've been getting right or wrong with examples that have been provided. So I think there's a lot of room for predictive analytics, although predictive and scenario-based, that students are looking for. And also modernized learning platforms, and that could stretch across online teaching and learning, as well as research, as well as data science, and making a sense of all of the data that comes together for a student life cycle. So from the time the student actually starts right up until the time the student actually graduates, what is that life cycle, and even after the student is an alumni. And I think the alumni element is also coming across very strongly, because university students want to stay, they want to stay connected. They want to be able to start to stay to the alma maters. I've studied, a specific in a specific faculty, but I've actually ended up in a completely different profession that I've not even thought of. And those are the things, that students want to stay connected as alumni to universities, as always, that we're finding more and more, and, building those platforms that we can actually stay connected to our alumni. Then I just want to focus on the student systems and show how this has evolved. Over time, where there's 4 dimensions to this now, looking at the overall academic activity, which is your course catalog, your course registration, your attendance of lectures, your attendance of tests and assignments, but also advising interactions. So, enrollment plan, academic advisory, operational reports, and that's where the predictive analytics come on board, and degree audit. Also outcomes, how do we admit the students? How do we grade and provide academic record for them? And then you come to the business transactions, which is essentially the student accounts, the financial aid, and the actual student recruitment that could happen, as a function of completing their studies at the university. So overall, from my end, the important thing at this stage, I think, for any technology division, for any technology area, is to stay connected to what the evolving student needs. And they are our primary stakeholders, together with the staff of the university, and the students even more so. And these students, they are 4IR students. They are digitized students. They want a different experience. They have different changing dynamic needs that can be fulfilled by technology. So it is very, very important to stay connected to what their expectations are. And in doing this, I believe that is how universities are going to evolve, are going to, and different students in different areas, in different countries, in different cultures will require different things. And that is why it's important for any technology division to then make sure that they stay connected. And this could mean, a real-time connection. This could mean a technology platform. This could mean, tell me how was your lecture experience today? And not just, once a year or every quarter, but make this a real-time, or try to make it a dynamic process so that you hear their needs dynamically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denisha. That was really interesting. We have a couple of questions and we have time for more, so if people want to post their questions in the question panel. But I wanted to start off with, you were talking about ensuring that institutions respond to and meet the evolving kind of needs of the student as customer. I just wanted to ask if you could say something about how you keep up with those evolving needs, and how are you gaining those insights, where are you getting those clues from?
Sure. So currently, I think, for me particularly, we keep very close relations, a collaborative platform that we have with the student bodies. There are many that exist in universities. The other ways you could do it, and we're looking at how do we do it online? How do we do it perhaps more often, perhaps after lectures, after, a week of lectures, in the different faculties, so that we can make it a more consistent. So if there's a change in need, if there's all of a sudden something that we didn't pick up, maybe in meeting the student bodies, we can then pick it up on those platforms as well. And we can plan for it, and we can then say, this is what the students are now needing. And this is why I say it's such a dynamic process. It's not something that is static. These are 4IR students. That is one of the ways, you can do it. And sometimes, the needs can obviously outweigh the resources that you may have. But in terms of funding, in terms of technology, but then, as technology divisions, we really need to apply ourselves innovatively to come up with models on how we could support their needs.
Thank you. That was great. And sticking with that, with the next question, you talked earlier about the maturity of your technology stack and the maturity of your staff in terms of like paying attention to that and supporting that. There was an implied assumption about the digital maturity of your students. Has your institution thought about kind of digital inequality and digital inclusion, and what considerations have you made for that, and how are you planning for that?
Sure, definitely. I think, technology is one of those platforms that, is an equalizer, in many ways. And definitely, from our side as an institution, we have made available via, we call it, there's a specific group of students that may not be able to afford certain elements. So we then go out, and there's a funding mechanism that we could then go and get, equipment for them, and make sure that they have the basic tools of trade to be able to study and research and online teach and whatever they need. So we have done that. We'd make, because we believe that, there's no student and staff member that can ever perform their duties without this equipment. Also, we've got a higher education institute in South Africa for all our higher education institutions that come together. And we also looking at the Microsoft and all of the licenses and how can we come together and be able to lower those costs because we are in the business of education. That has proved very, very valuable as well, where we were able to get a lot less, costing because of the fact that our main capability is to provide education. So it's called the Higher Education IT SA, HIETSA, that's what we call it.
Great, thank you. You talked a little bit about costs and costs of technology. In your presentation, it was quite exciting about the things that we can do, the things we can do with technology, the ways in which we need to evolve. How do you manage expectations when you're on the kind of digital transformation path like that? No institution has an unlimited budget. How do you rationalize what your offer?
Sure. I think that's a very important question because there's this growing needs, and we don't have budgets and we don't have resources that grow at the same pace. And I think this is why it's very, very important that technology teams are able to apply themselves and think outside of the box about funding models that could work. And sometimes, based on economies and where we are, post-COVID, hopefully, the economies may not be at its optimum. So unfortunately, we do have budgets that are shrinking, and for obvious reasons throughout the economy. So one of the things that has really worked positively for me was the power of partnerships. And those power of partnerships really helped, whereby we got vendors in that were able to partner with us and sponsor us in a way that it would bring value for them and us. So it's a win-win. And when they invest in higher education institutes, they will then, they get a corporate social investment element on their side, which they need to have. And that would then, help them. And it would help us. And I had went into far further to actually allow, an ongoing partnership, not just for a set or a fixed period of time, but for an ongoing, if they maintain the technology for us, and that then takes the cost of the institute. It actually gives it to them, but at the same time they would need it because they in South Africa, we've got the King 4 corporate governance report that all listed companies need to adhere to. And that means they have to invest in corporate social investment and not just profit-based organizations. And this is a good way that they could do that. So it is a win for them if they invest and continue to invest in our institutions because of the very capability that we provide to society, which is
thank you, Denisha. We've got a question about students and students as online learners. We've often found that students don't necessarily know what they need to become effective online learners. So that evolving happens during the experience of learning. And it's through the learning experience that they realize what they need, and they realize afterwards how important those skills are. Is that something that's being considered within your institution, within your strategy?
Yes. I've actually come through to my university earlier this year, and I'm already putting in plans to start the induction and have an element of the student induction, have a digital element for them, so that they could go through, a catalog of digital tools that we will have available for their learning experience, learning and research experience. So, the first years when they come in, immediately in the, they have orientation or the induction, have a digital element to it so that you can show them what tools are available, how to optimally use them, and also, where to go if they have problems, and how to contact us and so forth. And then you already kickstart them into the process versus leaving them to figure it out for themselves, which could take a little bit longer. And you might have, your call center for IT might have a lot more calls if you didn't do that part. But also, the second year, third year, fourth year students, some of the masters and postgraduate students also don't understand what technology they do have available to them. So what we're doing, we're running campaigns in the faculties so that they understand, these are the technology stacks and tools that are available to them upfront. And a lot of them say, oh, I didn't know that, or I haven't used that for many years, and it would have really helped me. And this is why, we've got to take that proactive approach as more and more students come in the first years, but then the ones that are existing as well in the system, take them through that, be deliberate and intentional about making sure that they go through that as well.
Great. Another question here about engagement, student engagement. We often hear that engagement in online classes gets more difficult as class sizes grow. Have you come across any creative solutions to foster engagement in large classes?
Yes, I think there are many, and I think it's important as well. That's why it's important, for us to understand, perhaps after every lecture and have that data feed, into a dashboard. How do the students actually feel? Were they experiencing lots of problems in one lecture, less in another, and so forth? And then that triggers things already. And that will proactively tell you, as an IT division, as the CIO, there's a problem in this specific lecture theatre, or there's with the equipment, or, it was too large and our platforms were too small. And that's where we need to scale up. And it's very, very quickly and easily scaled up and scaled down, because a lot of the solutions sit on cloud. And we can easily scale it up and scale it down. But that is why it's important to understand what is happening in the lecture theatre, so that we know, and proactively so, that in the next lecture, perhaps of this size, in this area or location, we know what we need to do better and how do we need to improve.
Great. Lots of questions coming through. A question about data security and borders. So customers and providers are often cross borders, and the data may need to remain within one country's borders. Do you have any thoughts about how we respond to that dilemma?
Yes. I think, every country's got different data laws, and some are very stringent and rigid, and some are a bit more flexible and fluid. But I think what's worked for me was understanding what are those data laws. Like in South Africa, we're not allowed to take our data outside. But we've got the hardware platforms here on the cloud solutions, and I understood who are the cloud providers, where are they actually located, and being able to then negotiate from there, versus going into contracts and then you're realizing later, or just before sign off, oh goodness, there's a piece of government legislation here that does not allow me to go, about outside the borders. It's very difficult, especially when it's data. So my advice would be, look at your service providers, understand where their infrastructure sits, and understand your data legislation very well, or try to, so that you can tie those three up and not, and make the proactive decisions that will be correct. And, also the backups and the disaster recovery those elements are also well, how can I say, well managed. And I think the cloud element, what's important on cloud for higher ed is being on the cloud and in the cloud. And I think we need to be very vigilant, especially on security. There's an element of your service providers that you've got to, they will give you the generics, they will give you the cloud native tools, but it is you that has to manage that as well, complementing them to make it a holistically secure solution if it's cloud. And that's where most of our learning solutions are going in any case. So yeah, it's having it complement each other, making sure, understand it's your cloud. You've got to work in tandem with the service providers, understand where their hardware is sitting, so that you and your data legislation in your country, so that you comply, and then work with them and complement their cloud native tools together with your processes.
Thank you. A couple of questions coming through about what's happening, what teachers are doing. I don't know whether this applies to you, but see what you think. So hands-on activities are an essential part of learning in STEM majors. And this question is, how can you achieve the same in-person learning experience with hybrid platforms without compromising learning? I don't know if hybrid is something you've had experience with, but if so, have a go.
Yes, definitely. I think hybrid is something that everybody's experienced in some way or form. But the hybrid experience, I think, can be very powerful because you can keep on playing it if you need to. There's videos available, as well as and it can be revisited whenever you need to. But also the hybrid or those elements, aside from the one-to-one teaching, it also allows you to see examples and those examples in real life with specific analogies that could be videoed, teaching them, the law of gravity, not just by an equation, but actually showing them, visibly what it means when you calculate this and that of the equation. It's not just an equation, and that, because the online element allows you to visualize things more. And I think the visual element is what makes or can make it a very powerful experience, because you can use different examples to visualize and show the same concept. And I think having a hybrid is good because you can have the visuals, but then the one-on-one or the face-to-face is where the specificity comes in terms of what, yes, I understand the equation, but when I apply it, this is what I'm not putting right to get to the answer that I need. And that is where the specificity, and that is where the one-on-one becomes powerful. So I think it's a hybrid, and a hybrid would actually make it quite successful. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've probably got time for one last question. And this is, so this person's saying data security is only one aspect of regulation in this area. Is online education regulated in South Africa, and how is that? If not, are there examples of regulation that is emerging?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're regulated by many pieces of legislation in South Africa and frameworks, and I'll name just but a few. So we've got the Electronic Communications Act, we've got the RICA Act, we've got the Cybersecurity Bill, we've got the National Data Policy that's now upcoming. We've got frameworks, which is the COBIT and ITIL and TOGAF, frameworks. We've got for cybersecurity, the NIST framework, the GDPR framework as well. So there's a hybrid, there's so much of prescriptive legislation, and there's also the standards. And I think bringing those two things together on how you deliver the hybrid learning, on how you actually apply it, when you're delivering a hybrid platform. That's what the governance framework should look like, together with the context of your institution. So underneath the framework will sit your policies, your processes, and your procedure guides. But having that governance framework upfront in terms of your legislation, your standards, your various committees, how you deliver to the organization, that high-level value chain, and how these things support it, is examples of the ways that we could apply a governance framework for online education. And yes, it's highly regulated in how we deliver it by all of these different standards and legislation put together.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Denisha, for your excellent presentation, for handling all of those questions. So yeah, I'll give you a virtual round of applause. We will finish this session now and we'll be back. So the next session is, we'll be hearing from Southern New Hampshire University on what it will take to tackle both the ed and the tech. That will start in about 10 minutes, but don't forget to check out the community feed and let other attendees know that you're online. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.